If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content.
What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal back again for another excellent album review. I am Shredlord.
I am Necrotic Nick.
And today we are excited to bring you the brand new Enslaved album.
Utgard. This comes out on the 2nd of October on Nuclear Blast Records. This is probably one of my favorite Norwegian bands, period. These guys formed in 1991 when Grutle and Ivar were 17 and 13 respectively, and they've been doing this ever since. That is pretty amazing. This is their 15th album, and their first one with their new drummer and vocalist, Ivar Sendoy. I think that's how you say your name. I'm probably going to butcher a lot of foreign names on here and a lot of Norwegian words, so I'm sorry already.
He's trying.
I am
Give
trying.
him a break, he's trying.
And this is also their second one with their new keyboardist, Håkon Vinje. I'm sorry, dude. I'm really sorry. Vinje, however you pronounce that. You're an awesome keyboardist.
You are a good keyboardist.
And
for sure.
The band is actually older than he is. The band itself has been around longer than he is. He was born in 1992. Yeah.
Oh shit, he's a baby!
This is a band I have been a fan of for years. Actually, I believe the first thing I ever heard from them was Below the Lights, and it was like, yes, more of this.
The first time I even heard of Enslaved was at St. Andrew's Hall. They opened up for Opeth in 2005 or 6.
That's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So I'd never heard of them until that point, but they opened up for them, and I was like, damn, this is some good shit.
I saw them open up for Dimmu Borgir, and they completely blew Dimmu Borgir out of the water.
That doesn't surprise me.
It wasn't even fair. Blood Red Throne was also on that bill too, and they did a kick-ass job. But yeah, I've had a long thing for this band. I went out and got all the earlier stuff, and I picked up every new album ever since they came out, and I was super excited for this one. This one is different, and it's different in a really, really good way. First off, the thing I noticed was there are no tracks over 7 minutes long, which is kind of odd considering E had, I believe, like 11 and 10-minute tracks.
Big old monsters.
And slowly over the course of these albums, they've been falling more in love with old prog, and man, do you hear it on this album.
They hit a home run for the vibe.
70s prog, like what did you see, Marillion?
Marillion and little Peter Gabriel.
Genesis
for sure.
Some Yes peppered in there. Hawkwind, because this gets really spacey. Opening track, Fires in the Dark, starts off with the very appropriate Viking chants, and everyone here is singing. It's really interesting because...
That's a great element that they've just added.
Yeah. I think, well, the new drummer is also a vocalist, and plus their keyboardist is also a vocalist, so I believe you have at least 4 members that can all harmonize together in these really cool throaty chants. And there's a lot of clean vocals from Grutle too, which he is known for his token screams, which there are plenty of those on here, but...
You don't hear them right away, though.
You don't.
We kind of were like, oh, there they are.
There he is.
It took a while, though. The first track kind of probably, what, halfway through maybe? Halfway to 3/4 through the first song, he finally...
There he is.
Welcome back, Cotter.
But within that first track, you hear like a marching, sort of almost like a war march with the Viking chants. And then it has some Middle Eastern melodies that pop up and the guitar work. And this is pretty much kind of a thing with this whole album is every song feels like a story or an adventure. Like it really takes you on a journey. That's something I look for in prog.
This album can only be described as an acid trip. And
yes,
that's a good thing because this takes you to so many different places, scenarios, moods, feelings, and vibes. Does it well, because you know sometimes sections don't always blend well. All sections blended well, all the vibes blended well. It's really well composed, like a lot of thought went into this.
But it's still 100% Enslaved. Like it's unmistakable. You know it's them, it's just them really pushing themselves in a different direction, I would say. Or at least a direction they've been sort of nudging towards. This is the full push into almost entirely prog. There are definitely black metal elements on here, but they are definitely subdued under waves of clean, like really pretty playing, some really cool dissonant stuff that isn't necessarily black metal, but it's very dark and somber.
Still evil-y.
And the thing that really stands on here is the synth work.
Yes.
The synth work absolutely layers this thing. It is one of the most lush sounding albums they've ever done.
Yeah, the guitars, I would say about halfway through the album, the guitars start taking a back seat in the mix, and the keyboards really start to shine through, and you can really see the talent of this 1992 whippersnapper. But yeah, lush is the right word. The textures, the melodies, and most importantly to me, the phrasing. The way he played everything was very hats off to all the kings, John Lord and
Rick
Wakeman and Tony Banks and all those kick-ass, super underrated keyboard players that nobody talks enough about. So he nailed it.
This whole part here, especially where the synths really take over, Utgard is pretty much the title track-ish. There's another song in here that has Utgard in it. It's Storm of. That's a really good song too. This one is just pretty much a spoken word over spacey soundscapes. It's pretty much Vikings in space. But I tell you what, Grutlick could read a menu, and in that voice, it would be the creepiest thing you've ever heard. This was appropriately like 1980s horror. Like, we were talking about John Carpenter stuff, and I was like, dude, this. But when it leads into Urjotun, I think I pronounced that right or wrong, take your pick, probably wrong. This instantly starts out with a really cool 80s synth sort of line that goes through it, and really cool upbeat drums, lots of cool off-time fills, and Grutlick's bass just comes in thunderously on this song. And then the guitars are almost like kind of there as like icing on the cake, just like dissonant atmosphere and these really pretty melodies that just come in. But mostly it's driven by the synths and the bass, and just a really creative song, and very not Enslaved-ish, but it still kind of sounds like them. They kind of just made that sound their own.
Yeah, normally I don't go for that kind of a vibe, but I enjoyed it here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting album. Homebound, one of the lead-off singles, is kind of poppy, but not in an irritating, oh my god, turn that off way, but as in, this has a legit awesome hook. In fact, the entire song is just loaded with hooks. It almost has like a Foo Fighter sort of vibe to it, but again, as soon as it switches from that main riff into the verses, it instantly gets a lot heavier, brutal screaming, you get a nice double time stomp to it, and it just rips through here. And this is where Ivar, the drummer, actually does the chorus part and absolutely nails it. He's got a nice kind of gruff, like almost like modern rock sort of voice. This is kind of one of those albums where they're definitely changing quite a bit, but at the core, you totally recognize this as Enslaved.
So a standout track on here for me would be Flight of Thought and Memory. And this is a prog masterpiece. It's hard to pick a favorite on this album, but if I had to contemplate favorites, this would definitely be in the conversation. There is many different sections on here. It's almost like a layered cake, and each layer is a different flavor.
And it's all delicious.
And every layer is delicious. Once again, it goes back again to that acid trip scenario. It just takes you so many different places, man.
The lead trade-offs between Icedale and the keyboardist, whose name I'm not going to butcher again. I've already done that for you once. It just screams prog. Like, the leads are probably, they just meet like the needs of every song, but this one they kind of just got a little bit more flashy. It was a little bit more fun and loose.
Yeah. A lot of the leads up to this point, with the exception of one or two songs really on this whole album, didn't really have traditional leads per se, more or less melody lines or guitar lines that just enhanced the mood of, the mood/atmosphere of the section that they're in.
Add another layer.
Yeah. Not really the traditional type guitar solo. You do have that a couple times throughout here, though. This lead track kind of reminded me, I don't remember what he's harmonizing by. I'm going to take a guess and say harmonizing by force. But basically, there's a melody line in this song in particular that has kind of like a Steve Vai sound to me. And I thought that was really cool, too, because obviously, when I think of progressive rock guitar players, I mean, I think of Steve Vai, and maybe not in the traditional sense of progressive rock, but he is such a virtuoso progressive guitar player that I think people who appreciate that 70s prog stuff can definitely appreciate the kind of music Steve Vai has to offer. So
absolutely. And then Storms of Utgard. This one is yet another awesome proggy one, but this one's a dark song. Like, you can definitely tell it starts off with, like, you know, storms appropriately in the sounds, but you get these sweeping synths and a really, like, cool distant opening, and then it breaks into, like, this really cool gallop.
The heavy, it turns into a heavy tracks. It turns into a heavy banger.
Absolutely.
That you're just like, yeah.
But the thing on here that I absolutely loved is the bridge. The bridge brings in just an absolutely cool, like, crawling little proggy riff. You get tambourines in there too, so they bring on like another layer of percussion on there, which their drummer brings in some awesome other stuff too, like tubular bells and different stuff. Like, he's very creative in terms of his approach. But this one was just like pretty much a flat out embracing of maybe a little bit of modern prog, but mostly still that classic prog vibe. And then we get down to Distant Seas, which I think might be the catchiest song on the entire album, which is entirely loaded with catchy songs. This is that cool kind of just somber outro almost. Like, it still works as an entire song, and I had to check and see if it was a cover because they've covered like synthwave bands before. This is theirs, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's almost just a straightforward rock song. It could be a single.
Yeah, and it also kind of, like we were talking about before, kind of has this very epic 80s Pink Floyd kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Right there.
That kind of era of Pink Floyd, you know, very, very epic and just very kind of, oh man, it gets you the feels. It
really does. Like, I mean, all of this, I mean, had the 80s kid inside of me just going nuts and pretty much convincing myself, you know, we should probably watch Neverending Story later. I might not.
Turn around.
I said it, he sings it.
You can see. Sorry.
Overall, this is an awesome album to listen to, and I recommend listening to it front to back. Don't even skip
back to front. But remember, never white back to front.
Never.
But listen.
Don't even skip the interlude, the little Utgard spoken word part. It's really cool. And
it is cool.
Transitions really well into the next song. This is an amazing whole piece here. And I gotta give it 4.5 stars. I think this is one of Enslaved's most adventurous albums, and I absolutely love it. Like, it is one of the most lush sounding albums. I think the fact that the keys were a big part of this and just adding that cool extra layer, they were just at a creative peak. I think they just really just wrote a lot of catchy songs that are still uniquely them, but embrace some different sounds in here, and I would say they wrote one of their best albums.
I also got to give this a 4.5. I think this is one of the strongest albums in their catalog, even being as different as it is. The compositions are strong, the hooks are strong, the interest, it keeps your attention the entire way through. There's really nothing bad to say about this album.
No.
It covered a lot of bases, it scratched a lot of itches, even in the naughty spots. But yeah, this is a solid ass album from Enslaved. I thought I knew what I was gonna expect with this album, and it totally was not what I was expecting. But once again, in a very pleasant way. I would not be surprised to see this end up on my top 10 year-end list.
I think it's going to be. I plan on jamming this one a lot. Like, this really was an immersive listen. Like, I was engaged the entire time, almost hypnotized. This is an awesome album. If you're a prog fan, get it. If you're a black metal fan, there's still elements there, but just get it.